Sup, bruh? It's 420. You know what that means. It's time for some Blazor. Yeah, Blazor. What do you think I was going to say? Comedy. Today we're going to take a look at Blazor, the ASP.NET framework for single-page applications. So what is Blazor? Well, Blazor is the ASP.NET solution for writing web UIs. And the difference is that you write the web UI in C# rather than JavaScript. Now, don't get me wrong, disclaimer, you can write JavaScript in Blazor, it's just not as straightforward. The main reason you would use Blazor, though, is so that you can stay in C# land while still doing web development. So there are two types of Blazor project. There is server-side Blazor and Blazor WASM, or WebAssembly. So with server-side Blazor, the client logic runs on the server. There's a SignalR connection between the front end and the server side that transfers data, whereas WebAssembly runs .NET in your browser. So the benefit of that is it means you can do things like host a Blazor application on an architecture that would support static files, for example. Now in this video, I'm going to create a Blazor server-side project because it's the one that I usually go for. It usually fits most of my use cases, but you should be able to build a Blazor WebAssembly project just as easily. In terms of what kind of Blazor project you should choose, there's a really good comparison on Microsoft's documentation, which I'll link in the description below. And very quickly here, you can see a breakdown of the differences between Blazor WASM and server-side Blazor. As you can see, for Blazor Server, there's complete API compatibility to .NET. There's direct access to server and network resources. It's got a smaller payload size with a fast initial load time. There's near native execution speed, and the app code is secure and private on your server. Whereas on WebAssembly, you don't have complete API compatibility. You don't have access to the server network resources, at least not directly, and it's not as small a payload size. But the benefits are that you can run your apps offline once they've been downloaded, you can offload the processing to clients, and you can have full access to native client capabilities. So there are benefits and drawbacks to each one. It's best to just figure out which architecture is best for your use case. So let's build a server-side Blazor project. So I'm in Visual Studio 2022. I'm going to use .NET 6, so I'm not using Visual Studio Preview. And in the Create a New Project screen, I'm just going to search for, actually, Blazor, not Razor. So I get a Blazor Server app, or I get Blazor WebAssembly app. So I'm going to choose Blazor Server app, click Next, give it a name. So let's go Blazor. Click Next. I'm going to choose .NET 6. And then you get to choose an authentication type. So this is very similar to ASP.NET MVC. You can choose if you want to have built-in authentication. So you can choose either no authentication, individual accounts, which means it would be a built-in authentication system using ASP.NET Identity. You can use Microsoft Identity Platform. I'll probably do a special video on this because you can, say for example, link into your company's Active Directory users and have people use their work accounts to log in. Or you can use Windows, so you can use this for if you were going to have this be a local application, people could just use their Windows user to log in. For this, we're going to keep it very, very simple. I just want to give you an overall tour of Blazor and how it looks when you first set up a project. So we're going to choose None, and we are not going to enable Docker. So you can, out by default, say that you want to have this compatible for containerization, depending on how you're going to deploy it. But we will leave the default configure for HTTPS because, well, let's stay secure, yeah? And then I'm going to click Create. So the really good thing about Blazor as well is that you don't necessarily have to stay in the world of the web. If you learn Blazor, you could use WebAssembly to do something local, but you could also use Blazor in the new .NET MAUI ecosystem, which allows you to turn your Blazor web apps into native desktop applications. But we'll look at that another time. For today, let's look at our web project. So this is what you get when you first create a Blazor app. So in the Solution Explorer on the right-hand side, you can see the structure of the project. And the main areas we're going to want to look at are the Pages folder, the Shared folder, the Program.cs, and the Data folder. So our first page here is the index.razor, and this is going to be the page that we see when we fire the app up. You've got some very similar things here to what you see in ASP.NET MVC. You've got the Razor syntax. So you've got page and the root. So this will be obviously the first page that loads. And you've got some components here. So we're doing page title, index, and then we've got our HTML. So this is going to render our first page. There's also some other example pages, like the counter, for example. So here we've got an example of some code. So we've got C# running on the front end, and here you've got someone just implementing a simple counter. So on button click, the current count int will be incremented, and that will be displayed on the screen. We're doing that with an on-click event here. So we're saying use increment count when that is clicked, and you've got the variable used in the markup here at current count, and so you can see there's some two-way binding there. When that updates, it'll update the markup as well. So we'll see the number going up on the screen. They also give an example of fetching data. So there's also a page called fetch data, and this will show a table containing various weather forecasts for certain dates. So this has the markup for the page. Again, very similar to ASP.NET MVC with this razor syntax inside the HTML, where we can say if a particular variable is null, then show this HTML, otherwise show this table that contains variables that I've set in code. The difference here though is that you've got a method called onInitializedAsync. So that is an overridden method that fires when the page renders. Then in the example, they're getting the data for forecasts, which is shown here for the table, from a service. Now, ASP.NET is no stranger to the concept of services and middleware, and this is something that I'll show you after we've fired the app up, so you've got a bit more context. So let's fire the app up. You can see the actual rendered result of these pages, and then we can go into a bit more detail about how they were created. So we'll do let's go Blazor, kick it off. So that's built. So I actually spotted a bug while I was trying to run that. You'll notice here, since I've updated the page, there's no more apostrophe in Let's Go Blazor. It doesn't seem to like apostrophes. So when the application had that special character in it, it blew up. So I've just recreated the Blazor project with no special characters, and it works. So I'm going to fire that up. And then here we go. That loaded super quickly. This is our first project, our first Blazor project. So this is the page you see, hello world, welcome to the new app, and you can see this is the component, the survey prompt that was shown on the HTML. We'll go over to our counter app. So by default, you've got this nav bar, and here's the counter that we were talking about where the count was being incremented. You can click this and there you go. It's updating various values. So it gives you straight away an example of the two-way binding. Now for fetch data, we've got this page, and here's our table we were talking about. So if the forecasts aren't null, it will render this table, and it will loop through that forecast list that was generated and show the results. So far so simple, just normal razor syntax. If you've done ASP.NET before, then you're going to have no problem rendering variables into HTML using razor. However, the services are a little bit different. So let me show you how this data was actually received. So back in the project, I'll just stop the application. If we go to data, in fact, if we go back to fetch data, the page itself, you'll see that we're doing an await on this forecast service, and we're calling getForecastAsync. But where is this service? In the data folder, we've got a weather forecast class, and we've got weather forecast service. So here, this is the method we're calling to get our data, and this is returning the result of a task which gets various pieces of data from up here. Now, it's not enough to just create this service class and then to be able to just pull the data from it. We need to add it as a service in the startup of the project, and this is where we get back to the more traditional ASP.NET way of doing things. So back in program.cs, this is where the application first starts up. This is where we're adding our services. So we've got add razor pages, add server-side Blazor. That's setting up all the services that are required, that are dependencies to create a Blazor project. And the third service here we've got is a singleton called weather forecast service. So when you've created your service class, you can then set it here to be added as a service when the application starts up. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a singleton. You can say builder.services. add transient, which means it will be a transient service. It won't just create one instance of it. And so, it's totally up to you what the life cycle is of that. But in most cases, add singleton is fine. If it's just a class that needs to sit there and provide data, add singleton, and then your type of service is absolutely fine. What I have noticed is if your class is using entity framework, then you have a little bit of a problem getting to the context if it's a singleton. So my advice would be to do services.addTransient, and that will allow you to use entity framework inside your service. So what if we wanted to add our own service? Let's take a look at that then. So for this example, I'm going to create a list of colors. Maybe we are stocking a certain product that has various different colors, and we want to create a service which gets the amount of colors that we have in stock. Let's do something like that. So let's create a new class in our data folder and call it color service. Hey, I'm from the UK, so I spell color with a UR. I hope that's okay. So we have our color service, and then as part of this, I'm going to create a new list of string. I'll call it colors with a URS. And then I'm going to create a constructor for this. So color service, and when we initialize our class, we're going to create a new instance of the string list. So colors equals new list of string, and then I'm just going to add in some colors. So colors dot add blue, colors dot add red, colors dot add, let's go a bit crazy, let's say indigo. Okay, so at any given time, our color service will have 3 colors in it. So what if we want to say, show the number of colors that are in stock on the page? So we can create a task for that. So I'm going to create a public task of int, because we want to return a count, and it will be get number of colors in stock. And then we'll do return task dot from result. So from result will just give the successful result of a given task. So we can just say colors dot count. There we go. So that will just return the number of colors that we have in this service. Obviously, in the real world, you'd probably do something a bit more advanced, like speak to a database or an API or something like that, but you get it. It's just getting some data, and this is how we do it. But now we need to register this service. So we'll go over to program, and underneath our weather forecast service, I'm going to say builder.services.add singleton, and then type of color service. And there we go, we've registered our service. So now if we wanted to, we could create a page and we could get some data from that page. We could just show the number of colors in stock. So to create a page, we'll go over to pages, we'll right click it and click add razor component. And then we'll say the name of this is colors. Add that, and here we go, we have a razor page. Now there's something we need to put at the top here, which is at page, and we'll want to give this a path to get to. So if we use /colors, that should allow us to do a /colors on our base URL to get to this page. So now we need to get a little bit similar to more basic C#, and we need to add a using statement so that we can get to our data. So think of that as kind of like your namespace. And then we also need to do something called inject. And this is where we inject our service. So in our case, it's going to be a service of colors service, and we'll call it color service. Okay, so now we should be able to use this service on this page to get some data and display it. So I'm going to move this code block down to the bottom so we can allow our logic to be at the bottom of the page. And I'm going to create a variable, private int, called total colors in stock. And I'm going to set it to 0. Then we're going to add some code which we want to fire on page load. So we can do that by overriding a base class. So we can say protected override on initialized async. I'm also going to set this to async so we can await things and get rid of this template code. So then we want to set total colors in stock to await, and then we use our color service dot get number of colors in stock, so the method that we wrote. And there we go. So that should set this to however many colors there are in stock as per that service. Then up here what we can say is have some conditional HTML. So I've added an @ symbol, and I can say if, and then total colors in stock is greater than 0. So if it actually has some, then we can show this HTML. So we're going to do a H3. We'll say total colors in stock, and then we can refer to that variable, total colors in stock. Then we can also say else. So if there are no colors in stock, we'll show a H1, make it bigger, and we'll display a message of panic. There's nothing left. All is lost. Send help. There we go. So let's run this. So here is our app, and if we go to /colors, you've got colors, total colors in stock 3. And now if we go back to our service and let's say get rid of red, okay, app restarted, go to /colors again, and there we go, total colors in stock. And then let's also just remove all of the colors. So there should be 0 colors. Go back into the app, go to /colors, and there we go, panic, there's nothing left, all is lost, send help. So we've created some conditional HTML, we've contacted a service to display data, yada, yada, yada. Now we've created a page. What if we wanted to then show that page in the navbar? Well, the way we would do that is go down to shared folder, and there is a navmenu.razor page. And so here is the original markup for the navbar. So there's already a navlink component we could use. So if we wanted to, we could be a little bit cheeky and just copy this block, put this down here. We'll worry about formatting a bit later. And then you could just change this to colors, and then you would change this href to the name of the page that we created. We'll save that, run it. And you can see here we've got colors. So easily wide it up to the navbar as well. So it allows you to do some things quite quickly. There's a lot of scaffolding, there's a lot of shortcuts, and for the most part you can stay in C#. There will be some CSS and some HTML to do, but you know, in terms of programming, you can stay in the world of C#. Now in terms of styling, what if you said, okay, I don't really want a purple sort of gradient on my navbar. I completely agree. Maybe you want a cool black navbar or something like that. You want to change that CSS. So to do that, you would go to shared again, and the main layout should have a CSS page. So any of these Razor pages, if they've got CSS pages underneath them, you can style them. So you can see in main layout.razor.css, that navbar is actually a CSS class called sidebar. And what they've done is they've added a background image, so it's not just a bog standard color, and it's a linear gradient. So you could change this if you wanted to, and you could just say background color, and we'll go cool black. Yeah. Save that, run it again, and what we should have is a cool black navbar. And then if you wanted to style the nav items, you could go into the navbar CSS and do all that sort of stuff. If you wanted to style things on your particular page, for example, so I'll just put this on the side. I'll go over to colors, and I'll add new page, new item. We're going to add a CSS file, so a style sheet, and you simply name it the name of your page .razor.css. And as you can see, that has automatically been nested underneath that page. So if I wanted to, I should be able to start styling this now. So if I take my H1, for example, and make the color red, and then save it, restart the app, there we go. And so now that CSS page is in place, I can just keep changing the style of that, and there we go. It will change as and when I do it. Click save, and things are changing. So I'm able to style this stuff. Text align center. There we go, so that's changed the alignment. So it's quite easy to style the pages. You just simply create a CSS page named after the page with razor.css on the end, and you've got a CSS file or a style sheet dedicated for that page. Now there's loads more to talk about in this in terms of getting entity framework in, using more SignalR stuff, connecting it to your Active Directory so you can use work accounts to log in, all that sort of stuff. And I'll probably do other videos on that, but for now, hopefully you've got an idea of how to quickly create a Blazor application, and you really can build some really decent single page applications with this quickly and easily, especially if you're a C# fan and you don't want to write as much JavaScript. This is the tool for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's a huge help. I've recently hit 500 subscribers. I know it's not much, but I really want to get up to that next milestone of 1,000, so please do subscribe. I would be very grateful. I hope you're all well and you're enjoying your coding lives, but until next time, take care.